Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I was in my office when I heard, and I was listening to the television, when I heard one of the National members stand up and say that Labor is anti-rugby. And at that point I thought I had to come down to this House and defend the honour of my members of the Labor Party. Mr. Chair, the reason I have a dodgy shoulder and a stuffed hamstring at the moment is because at my age I am still pulling on the rugby jersey representing this House on the rugby fields around the country. I love rugby. Every Saturday I take my son out and he plays rugby. But I am not unusual. This weekend will be based around rugby, Mr. Chair. And it reminds me of a quote where a league player was asked, do you like the game of league? Would you die for it? And he said, well, I don't know if I would die for it. A deep coma maybe, but not death. And when I have a look at this bill, and I look up at the makeup of the authority, I love rugby, but I also value democracy. Democracy is a fundamental principle that underpins everything we do in this House, and this is what this authority represents. And when I have a look at the makeup of this authority, Mr. Chair, I understand why the Labor Party is supporting this Part 2 of the bill. The chair of the authority must be a retired judge or a lawyer of at least 7 years standing. The deputy chair must be a lawyer of at least 7 years standing. This is not an authority which is just thrown together of people who may be passionate about rugby. This is an authority, Mr. Chair, of people who have vast knowledge and competency in organising events, in law, in local town planning and everything. I have a look at this. And you look at this, when any application is received by the authority under its Act, the chairperson must appoint a panel which must comprise at least 3 members, including, as presiding officer, a lawyer of at least 7 years standing, who may be the chairperson of the authority. The chairperson must have regard to the need for the panel to have available to it sufficient members with the knowledge, skill and experience relevant to the particular application before it. This is a very robust process. And, Mr. Chair, this is not an authority that is going to say, we don't like rugby, we don't like New Zealand, we are going to hold this up for whatever reason. This is an authority. The reason this authority is in place is to ensure that there is due diligence undertaken, that due process is followed, and that it is not a shambles, that you do not run roughshod over the taxpayers and the citizens of New Zealand. That is undemocratic. And to have a clause in this bill, Mr. Chair, that says the minister can make decisions without input from any other person is just so undemocratic as to be abhorrent. I love rugby, but I also love democracy, Mr. Chair. And back to my colleague, Mr. Hipkins' point, Napier is the proud host of, I think the final might even be played in Napier. But when you look here, it says the Rugby World Cup will appoint members of the authority in consultation, etc., etc., but it must have people who understand the local requirements of the region in which the application is before it. This is a very robust process. As it is, it sort of bypasses the standard legal procedure that we have in this House, but this is a very robust process, Mr. Chair. And I cannot understand for the life of me why you would want to bypass this authority. It is set up, it is supported by Labor, it is an authority that is actually, the members are actually supported, I think, by the Minister on this side in consultation with his 2 other colleagues. This is so robust as to be almost watertight. And when I have a look at this also, the authority must, to the extent relevant, have regard to the desirability of making proper preparation for the World Cup. This is what we are all about. This is what we are all about. It must need to ensure the efficient, safe and lawful conduct of the Rugby World Cup. The efficient, safe and lawful conduct? Goodness me, we are all for this. Every single member in this Parliament supports this. The desirability of supporting the appropriate delivery of services by or through the New Zealand 2011 Limited. Every single member in this House supports this authority, Mr. Chair. This is what is needed to ensure that the Rugby World Cup held in New Zealand is a very, very successful venture. It will be successful. Of that I have absolutely no doubt. There's absolutely no doubt. And to hear that member say that Labor does not support the 2011 World Cup actually is a dreadful statement, Mr Chair.